Hello, everyone. I'm Daniel. We're joined today by Justin from Playing Board Games, who has a whole lot of experience with this game and what the classes of Arkham Horror the card game have been like over time. And we're going to be spending some time today talking about what they're maybe changing into in Chapter 2. So, with new designers means maybe some new design philosophy about the overall color pie, more or less, of what Guardians, Seekers, Rogues, Mystics, and Survivors can bring to the game. And in fact, as you can see here in the rulebook, they kind of talk about what they think the class strengths and playstyles should be, which is not something they really outlined as much in the original core. So we're going to dive into what the designers have said about what they think the classes should be like, and then looked at some of the Chapter 2 cards to maybe get some hints as to are they doing these things or not, and maybe if there's some ideas about what we think the future has to hold for these classes. Because while we've just seen the evergreen cards for Chapter 2, we haven't seen any of the new investigator boxes, the deck building boxes that will come out in the coming years that will still be part of the current environment. So, yeah, any first thoughts, Justin, on this idea?
I'm excited. The color pie, I think, is something that not many people know about, but it's the idea is just that every class is does something that's unique to them in some way, or alternatively is better than other classes regarding things. And a color pie is a very healthy way to determine card balance, identity for the classes. So I think that it's a very important thing for designers to have that established, and then also, even more importantly, follow through with that color pie that they have established.
Hard to do when you have a huge number of cards. So there was like some success and some, I would say, failures in Chapter 1. We're going to come back to this idea a bit in a future video when we talk about the color pie and how each class deals with encounter cards and that part of the game. Here we're just going to focus on the player cards themselves and, the general fighting, getting clues, that sort of thing. So we'll start with Guardian since they are always the first class in the box. Just as a FYI, I mentioned that they didn't really talk about this sort of thing in Chapter 1. The original rules reference I'm putting here really just gives a little thematic idea of who Guardians and Seekers and all are. They have that too in the new version, but as you can see, they just say that Guardians feel compelled to defend humanity and go out of their way to combat the forces of the mythos. They have a strong sense of duty and selflessness that drives them to protect others and to hunt monsters down. You can kind of glean from that there's support, there's fighting involved, and maybe some other thematic stuff in this. But in the new rulebook, they say a bit more. So I'll read this out as well, and we can make some our own comments. Then we'll check out some cards in Guardian to back that up. Guardian characters are team players who favor combat, protecting their fellow investigators, and building an arsenal for the next big confrontation. Guardians support as well as they fight, taking hits for others and healing damage when needed. If the thought of grabbing your weapons, hunting down the dark creatures of the mythos, and going toe to tentacle with them is appealing, the Guardian class is for you. Nice. Class strengths,
Yeah.
high combat value, healing, team support, heavy weaponry, strong allies, enemy management, extra damage. And the class playstyles, enemy tank, melee fighter, weapons expert, medic. We actually haven't seen much by way of medic yet.
Yeah, no. I will say I love the idea of all this, but I also wish they put in class weaknesses. I think that that could
Mm,
have been a good thing for new players to understand what they should be aware of when they are looking at the deck and also while playing the scenarios. So, for example, with the Guardian class, when they're like, why do I have no money and this asset in my hand? They could be like, oh, this is a Guardian thing. All my assets cost 3 to 5 resources
yeah.
and my economy is very low, so then they can like kind of understand that this is by design as opposed to a consequence of their play.
Very, very good point. I totally agree. So what do we see that's actually written here? Do we so we see that healing is part of it, although we don't have much healing so far outside of a couple of damage cards. But the high combat value, I think, is I don't know, kind of self-evident from Daniela having
Yep.
5 and Tommy having actually it's surprising. He only has 4 compared to the Nathaniel Cho deck that gave you a 5 combat guardian in the box there too. But
Yeah, they kinda swapped the core and the starter deck for this one around, which I think is nice.
Hmm.
I mean, I think, like, the high fist value is again, I think, like, this is a number that I would rather have said, like, um, generally fist focused, right? Like, generally, like, that's where your game plan is going to be. I think,
Hmm.
that's just being pedantic, though. That's just, like, my own, like, personal sort of thing. But I think they hit this, and then they also, are kind of showcasing this through the weapons, which are like they're all getting your fist higher. And then also the use, also like Detective Sherman and Logan Hastings also kind of showcase this, where it's like they make your fist even higher. And then it also goes into the step of endurance, where they get the fist boost from that as well.
Enemy management too. Like I wouldn't be surprised if we get some more evasion stuff that maybe is beyond just endurance, giving you a +2 to evasion. I think we might get some more stuff. What's the
We got restrained, right? We got the chain, the deep
That's
one to
right.
the radiator,
And
right?
and
Like,
uh the other one that make him sing, right? That also evades an enemy.
yeah, that card's gas.
Hmm.
And I think that I like that more for, like, how they define this. There's, like, they're not just killing enemies, they're doing enemy management, which is a term that you and I have used in our video. So I feel like what I think I really like about this, and it maybe is my own personal bias, but I feel like there's a lot of, like, the stuff that we put out there in our conversations, right?
Yeah.
Like in our videos when it comes to this, right? Where it's it's less about killing enemies, but it's more enemy management. And what is the difference for that, right? And like I think that Make 'em Sing and Restrained are two examples of enemy management that I would love to see the difference between Guardians fighting, but also managing enemies in that way.
It's interesting that they don't say anything about how they get clues, even though there's actually quite a few ways of getting clues in both the core and the Tommy deck. So uh, that's another thing to keep an eye on. Like, what exactly do the classes do with respect to advancing the game state? Like, do they all have that? Do they
Mhm.
not? Doesn't really say here, but if we do get it, it should be maybe in these particular categories, which I think is exactly the case right now. The
Yeah,
play styles, yeah,
I
go
think
ahead.
that clues oh, sorry, I think that clues are very interesting for the Guardian class because I always I so to me, I think the healthiest form of clue getting in the Guardian class is relying on other cards. I think that in the long term, Carolyn Fern is a cool Guardian, but I think was ultimately her stat line was bad for the Guardian class, which is a little bit strange to say because she is a completely fair investigator.
Mhm.
But when we look at Color Pie, I think that Guardian clues should be the same way that rogues deal damage. That seekers deal
Seekers do
damage.
damage, yeah.
That it requires like one shot effects that are generally pretty powerful, but they're not reliable enough to get things done. So examples of that, I think like Scene the Crime, obviously. Stakeout, I think, is actually a very good Guardian style of investigating action.
Mhm.
But then there's also the effects like On the Beat, which again is a very good one shot. Or alternatively, we have the Police Dog, which does give you +2 skill value, but only once a turn, right? Like I think that this is kind of like the like if they put like the weaknesses, I would love to have seen the Guardians say like can get clues, but usually it costs them a bit more, right? Because
Mhm.
I feel like that is like the perfect preference for me for the Guardian class.
I wanted to ask you about the, class play styles, and we'll look at the cards again. I know we've been throwing them out right and left here, but we'll look at them again in a second. So we've talked about how enemy tank is perfect, like, this is something they've clearly, uh, given us a lot of cards for.
Yep.
But melee fighter kind of surprised me because we just have machete, we just have the sledgehammer, and it seemed like chapter 1 had a bit more of a melee focus for Guardian, whereas the, firearms were in Rogue. At least that's how things seem to
Yep.
end up towards the end of chapter 1. Here, actually, there's nothing that says firearms, and yet from the core and mostly from the Tommy deck, that's everything we get, right?
It is a little bit strange. I'm kind of wondering if these are signposts for the archetypes we're going to see that they kind of have like scribbled down for the future, right?
Mhm.
Where like we're going to see like a melee focused fighter down the road that maybe even cares about like playing around the restrictions of melee assets because that is something that has changed, which we'll be talking about in a future video. But like I think that as a whole, it is a bit strange, especially like they could have just said like fighter, and it probably would have like been okay, right?
Yeah.
Because melee fighter is a bit strange because what do they have? Machete, sledgehammer, period,
The
right?
wrench, I guess, but,
Yeah. But yeah, that's not yeah, that's like that's not a guardian class. That's a Daniela thing, right?
it's
Um
Guardian now.
yeah. It's technically it is true. It is true. But I wonder if this is kind of signposted. And I think that if they're like the two classes that should be melee are Guardian and Survivor, so it does kind of like check out. But it is a bit strange when you see what's available here.
And we haven't seen much by way of a play style that is medic itself, right?
No,
Like, what does that
no.
mean? It's not just do you heal damage and horror, but do you get other things done via that? Like Carolyn, I would say, is kind of a maybe not medic if medic means like healing damage, but she's the one who's getting clues via healing at all. So I wonder if what a play style that is medic based means or looks like.
Yeah. I'm also very curious about this healing. If it is going to remain damage focused, because right now the Guardian is very damage focused for their healing, compared to the Seeker, which we'll talk about, and then also compared to the Survivor, which I think
Mhm.
is also very another interesting thing.
And Mystic.
And Mystic, yeah.
This is all the chapter 2 cards, including the investigators and their SIGs. Just kind of looking through and pointing out some things that really exemplify what the new directions are. So I think there's a lot of allies here. They said strong allies, and we're looking at the assets first, of course. Bodyguard, Detective Sherman, Logan, you're seeing here, Police Dog.
Police Dog 2, yeah. Police
Hmm.
Dog 1, sorry.
Yeah, down here, and then some more soak on the Rookie Cop, Resilience. So there's a lot of damage and a decent amount of horror soak in these assets, which is really good. What else are we looking at? We see the firearms,
Mhm.
this sort of new
We see
direction.
weapons. We see like a lot of options for weapons.
Yep,
Like, what
which
do they
is
have? One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight.
and then all these
No,
guys, the big
just
boys.
seven. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Like just seven options for weapons off the box. That's a lot. That's a lot compared to the original core.
right. We always
And
recommend having a
yeah,
good chunk of weapons just so you draw them. So there's a lot of
yeah.
focus here on having weapons and also getting them in. We'll see some events in a second, but even this protective vest that lets you draw a firearm or upgrade is really nice.
Another thing I really enjoy is seeing the service revolver kind of be a cross between these archetypes they talked about, where it's a weapons expert, but you're also tanking. Like they
Hmm.
kind of like to kind of show that, oh, there is some sort of like blending of the archetypes, which I think is pretty neat.
Yeah, it's worth saying here too that because Tommy and Daniela are evergreen, we expect that more cards that will be printed in the future are going to work for them too, because you always want to make sure that the investigators that they think everyone has are going to evolve over time too, and not just be stuck with the cards that we've been playing in them by necessity now. So
That
they can't get rid of this idea, these archetypes.
that's actually a thing that I think is very interesting, right? Where going back to the archetypes that they listed on the page, like what if those are the archetypes they're going to design in the future, right? Where um like these are what that you can expect to see kind of expanded, right? So like they might do new archetypes to go with this, but generally this is where we're going to see the support. So for example, like the Tommy deck put down a really good baseline for like firearms, but maybe that's why playstyle isn't here, right? Like because firearms don't really need more support in terms of like
Hmm.
cards that make firearms better, but maybe we're going to just see more firearms, right? But like maybe the melee fighter, there's going to be ways that that's improved in the future. But this foundation gives us at least two melee weapons to work with, right? The tank, we have the soak, we have a weapon that does the tank, so anything that supports it further. And
Hmm.
the medic, well, we don't have some healing, right? Like maybe that the idea is that you're going to get rewarded for healing kind of in the same way that like Vincent Lee does, but that's going to be like a guardian class thing. And that's just all hypothetical, but like maybe that's the case.
Yeah, I would not be surprised since they swapped Carolyn from Guardian to Seeker that they do the same thing, go from Vincent, a Seeker, to making him a Guardian or maybe a
Hmm.
Survivor. But
That
I
would be
think it
cool.
would
That would
would
be
make a lot of
cool.
sense. Okay, let's go back to our cards. Uh, yeah, I mean, this emphasis on firearms also kind of means that they're better than they used to be. So
Yeah, melee.
the
So yeah, melee weapons are worse.
and then
Firearms are
melee
better.
are
Yeah.
a little bit worse. Yeah, which is a change in the philosophy for sure. I mean, machete used to just be you get +1 for the attack, but you get to deal the extra damage to the enemy if it's the only one engaged with you for the whole turn. You didn't need to exhaust for that extra damage, which was quite strong. And
Yep.
as a result, the 4 cost 45 automatic, which is the M1911 in an old shell, shell is not pun on purpose, by the way. The this card which didn't feel like it was doing enough, but now at 3 cost and other support, man, like Tommy plays the M1911 here with 6 ammo on it, right? For 4
Yep.
resources, that's way way better than we had before.
It feels a lot more fresh. It feels like fresher with this change, which I think is very, very fun and engaging to see play patterns and also see these the ammo cards and like some of these
Mhm.
gun payoff cards because there's a lot of those in this Tommy deck as well. But again, I don't think that like I think this is all just like enhancing the color pie, but I think these are really good for the class.
Sledgehammer is interesting too because this as a melee weapon, when you compare it to the old sledgehammers, again, I don't want to say that's fair. Like we have a new design team, they're trying to make things different. For 3 XP, this is notably weaker than for the top action, right? Dealing
Yep.
+1 damage without any bonus for 3 XP and 2 hand slots is like yikes. But they're signaling to us that if you want a 6 damage output over 3 actions, it's going to cost you. There's no ammo
Yep.
here. There's no uses. So exhaust for that part. So figure out some other way to pass the tests, and that's much more interesting and engaging, I think, with the game. Although it's certainly toned down from what we had before.
Yep.
Okay, let's look at the events. We kind of mentioned things like make them sing already as ways of getting clues. Restrained as another enemy management. Lesson learned is probably another reasonable thing to shout out here as far as getting clues with enemies around and the tank part.
Bounty is a payoff for enemy management as well, which
Hmm.
is also a very good way for players to realize, oh, I need money. This is a card I should include.
And this is how to do it. Kill a really big thing. And then there's just plenty of this firearm support that says be a weapons expert. Have
Yeah,
your super gun in play.
yeah, yeah,
Um, yeah, not much more to say about these. I feel like they could have been at home in chapter 1 as well without much blinking of eyes.
yeah, yeah. I agree.
The skills, there's only really these 3 new ones.
I feel like Armed to the Teeth is kind of pushing you towards the weapons master type thing, where
Mm,
it's like it works in both firearms and melee. The idea that Indomitable is for tanking
hmm.
um, is there as well. I'm not here to comment about how good these cards are, but
No.
that's kind of like what it is signposting to players.
And then adapt and overcome as well as a card that only works when you're dealing with enemies.
Yep.
All right. That's Guardian. I mean, they haven't changed a whole lot. It's just a bit of tweaking here and there, and what the cards they've given us, that's kind of maybe that's shaken up what people are doing with the class, but otherwise feels pretty similar in terms of the play styles and the color pie itself.
Yep.
Okay, well we'll go on to the seekers, but let me go over to our seekers in the book over here. Okay, seekers' approach to a problem is to understand what is going on and figure out a solution using their mind. They are the intellectuals of the Arkham setting, often represented by students, teachers, scientists, psychologists. Hey, I know one of those. Detectives and philosophers. Hey, I guess we have the psychologist and the detective right off the bat. If you believe in the power of the clear and focused human mind, seek no further than the seeker class. It's interesting so much that the horror healing feels much more at home when they talk about the class that way,
Yes. Yeah.
because in the past, I don't think that was part of it at all. Let's see. Seekers are primarily concerned about with learning more about the world and the mythos. They wish to research forgotten lore, map out uncharted areas and study strange creatures. So,
You can definitely see the movement there, like the movement side of it. Like this was like the that's where that came from. You can see that here, which is not in this new version.
so you can see like a Ursula, a Monterey Jack making sense there. Uh, this is not that at all. Yeah.
I like this. I like this new description of the class a lot more. I think it really fits.
Okay, class strengths. They have exceptional intellect value. Card draw, deck searching, horror healing, discovering extra clues, powerful tome assets, precise skill tests. I feel like this is compared to the Guardian one, a bit more mechanical,
Yeah.
which is interesting.
Yeah, the
Class,
precise skill tests is exactly what it sounds like.
yeah,
Do they have any of that in the
it's just
core?
Dorothy.
Just Dorothy, but no enablers for it. So that means it's coming back, baby.
hmm
Maybe they'll reprint chemistry set, my beloved.
Class playstyles. The Clue Gatherer, or as some people who have written for FFG's website before, the Cluver.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm offended, but Clue Gatherer is better for official terminology though, for sure.
I mean, look, it's on their website. That's official enough for me.
Yeah.
The counselor, which I'm not totally sure what that
Horror
means.
healing, yeah. It's
It's the healing, but like, does it mean more than that? Um,
yeah, maybe healing. Maybe it's they're also talking about like giving actions is going to kind of return to this, which I think would be really nice on like the support seeker type thing.
right, because they didn't mention support here. It was just under the Guardian section. Although we didn't really see much support other than tanking for other investigators in Guardian yet either. But it'll come back because it's clearly written there. Gumshoe, that's Joe. Well, what does gumshoe mean? Like,
Gumshoe to me is like the fighter investigator type thing, like the private eye. Like you expect them to get like a little bit rough and tumble with it, right?
mhm, which is
But
not a
how
seeker
much are
thing,
we going to see that beyond just Joe, right? That's the
right?
real question. I'm curious.
It's
Yeah,
not been a secret thing at all, except for Joe in
yeah,
chapter one, and we got Joe right away. Like, are we gonna get a Michael Lee investigator?
that'd be cool. That'd be cool.
But how different is that from Joe, right?
I mean, yeah, that's the real question, right? Like, I feel like that's a I think that it's a tough one to walk, but I think that like effects like insidious truths where you actually have to fight with your fist might be a good way to continue to explore that in the seeker class.
Hmm,
But they have to like walk this line where they can add combat effects, but they need to fit that seeker color pie of being one shot or like enemy management in that way, um, without being just like I use my book for everything. And maybe that's what the gumshoe is signposting, where they're going to have combat options, but they're going to be a bit more like versatile or I want to say spontaneous, but in a
hmm.
seeker way as opposed to a survivor way.
To me, the most interesting part of that is the color pie often refers to, hey, this is an O5 Seeker, O2 Guardian, so he's going to have, as Joe is, that Guardian stuff, the dealing with enemies stuff from his off class. Like, why does the Seeker color pie need to involve that when his identity is coming, the
Mhm.
gumshoe identity is coming from the Guardian part? But again, we've seen just two investigators, so maybe they can walk that line in an interesting way in the future. If they have some
I could also
seek,
see Gumshoe potentially living in this idea of like through the cracks where like you are like investigating, but you're like avoiding conflict. Like I could see that also being the type of thing where like the enemy management is going to fall under this Gumshoe type of play style that they're talking about here.
hmm, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah,
Last one here is the head librarian, which is not just any librarian, it's the head librarian, who
yeah,
I think his name is Chad.
yeah. The
This just
restricted collection. Yeah,
this just makes sense, right? This is the
yeah. Tomes,
tome
tomes are going to
stuff.
matter.
Yeah.
Get more hand slots for tomes. You have that with the university archivist.
hmm
I imagine Daisy Walker is going to come back one day. Her playstyle is too unique to just like leave, not revisiting some sort of tome investigator, and they're not going to make a new one for that.
So going back to the strengths, what do you think about these mechanical things as being seeker strengths? Card draw, getting extra
I think
clues. Are
I
these
think that's
things
all.
that everyone should be able to do in some way?
I think everyone should be able to do it in some way, but the cost should be different. But I think Seeker, the idea that Seeker has card draw as a strength is that they do it with the least questions asked, right?
Mhm.
They can just have a card that says draw X cards at card advantage, right? Like, I don't think like, I'm gonna look at preposterous sketches here, and that's like the closest we have to just like a straight up just draw cards, right?
At level 0.
Um,
Yeah.
at level 0, right? But like that's like an example of I think that the seeker has the least requirement for their card draw. And I think that should be the way it is. Like if we look at this idea of seeker gets like a pay 2 draw 5 down the road at a high experience, I don't think I would bat an eye at that. I think that's like what the seeker class is, right? And they kind of have that with their unbridled knowledge, right?
Mhm.
Um, I think that all classes should have card draw. All classes should have the ability to get clues, but seekers are just the ones who don't need to think about it, right? I
So
think that
working a
that is
hunch.
yeah, the
Yeah.
healthy form of this card draw of like the basic game action type of stuff, right?
Mhm.
Like, and I think they've done a good job of giving like the classes ways that it works for this, right? Like even like gather intel, right? Like you could argue that that card is a guardian card, but I think that it would kind of actually go against the color pie of what the Guardian is. Guardians is glory, and that makes sense.
Mhm.
This one is kind of like the gumshoe idea, right? Where it's like you're studying these monsters and you're learning about them and getting the tools to fight them because you got the knowledge to fight them up front as opposed to the guardians who learned about it after, right? And that's kind of like where I think that this all for me at least personally works for this kind of stuff.
I think the biggest problem in chapter 1 with the card draw was that I think it compounded a bit too much where they had fast card draw everywhere, and they still have some of that. Like Joe himself draws a card every round. Gather Intel is fast draw 2, just 2 though. We the replacement for the level 4 cryptic research is this unbridled knowledge, which is good, but is a bigger ticket, right? This is 5 XP. It's not fast, cost you a
Yeah.
resource. So I think they still can give Seekers the best card draw without it being uh, degenerate.
Yeah.
But this is just, two sets of cards here. We'll see where that goes in the future. But I don't think it means, as you're saying, that card draw is just not in other classes, Guardian. But they can just have the best, or as you say, unrestricted versions of the card draw. So these effects I think are fine because they're just not asking. It's the most fair version of getting one clue. Working a hunch is just you do it, no
Yep.
questions asked.
Yep.
Other classes get lesson learned, um, right under their noses, which are very similar, but you have to do something else to make that happen.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's the healthiest way of doing like the core identity of the game stuff within there with classes because classes should have strengths even down to the core principles of the game. And I like that. And I think that like I like that Seeker has the card draw, and I like that they sacrificed movement for it.
Right. So there was a little bit of movement. There's through the cracks, kind of the. Oh, we didn't see local map yet. We didn't look at the assets. Right. Yes, local map is over here at the bottom left. That gives you some movement, but I think every class is getting something. Like the healing card in Guardian is a move compounded with something else. Like that's fine. But what this doesn't do is let you move to unrevealed locations. It doesn't cost you 0. It doesn't. It's not fast. I mean, it's kind of fast, but it's not completely eating uh, that play style for itself.
Yep.
Um, Anything else from the? We talked about Dorothy as being the only uh, precise skill
Precision.
tests, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I think I know why they got exceptional book compared to Guardian just getting high fist. Is that magnifying glass is they
It,
get it like so free still. That might be like a big difference. Is that they do they get their stat freer than every other class does in the core boxes.
mm-hmm. Still, but they don't ever get like +2. Like weapons give you more.
Mhm.
Now, there's reasons for that. I'm not going to say that that's fair, but yeah, these are you can put 2 of them in play. It's crazy. Yeah, and getting multiple clues. They have a few ways of doing that, like Dreamer's Chronicle, Fingerprint
Yep,
Kit, deductions we've seen before, and yeah, plenty of horror healing and some other card draw
yep.
too.
Yeah, no, this is I mean, I think this is a very, healthy mystic pool. Sorry, a seeker pool. The mystic pool is not healthy, Well,
We'll get there in a second.
Yeah.
Have you played all the skills, by the way?
No, no. I've actually only been playing Legacy.
Oh,
I've only done 1 chapter 2, and, I haven't explored most of these cards yet, but they seem
th-
fine.
yeah,
Like, they
this
seem fine.
established motive I've been impressed with. I think it's quite uh, fair and good.
Do you know what that card is? It's Eureka, but better.
Yes, in the deck that has enough insight events, but top
Yeah,
six you usually can find one. Like there's so many insights. Look at them all. They're right here.
yeah, yeah.
All of these are okay. Only hypnotize is not an insight of what we're looking at on the screen, and then some of these aren't. But
Um,
yeah.
I wanna shout out Psychoanalysis as the counselor card that's
Mm,
signposting there.
hmm
Um, this card is, I think, a really I mean, it's a very powerful card, and it's a very good seeker support card, and if this is what counselor means, I'd love to see them expand on that in the future.
100%. I also like that their evasion is reasonable because I think that seekers still should be able to evade. Like they can't just be left on
Yeah,
their own to be able to play the
I
game. But it feels
it's
very fair, I think.
it's a much better form of enemy management that seekers should be doing. I think that they nailed all of that, and I think that it's nice because you can kinda either run all of it, or you can run what's best for your deck, which you need.
Okay, let's move on to the next class then.
The rogues.
Rogues should be next. Okay, the old rogue description was that rogues are self serving and out for themselves. Wily and opportunistic, they're always eager for a way to exploit their current situation. Accurate. Okay.
Very accurate.
Rogue characters make their own rules and find a way to continually tilt the odds in their favor. They are adept at avoiding enemies, taking calculated risks, hey, that's the name of a card, for great rewards and gathering lots and lots of resources. If taking on the guise of a character who lives just outside the law and can melt into the shadows appeals to you, the rogue class is for you.
I miss the selfish thing, but maybe they have this in the strengths and play styles, but I think that that's a cool part of the rogue that I would hate to see lost.
I like the gambling part. Making their own rules reminds me of like Pure Gamble in the
Yeah,
original core that didn't get a reprint yet. Uh, I agree with that. There's this selfishness that is so defining that's just not here.
yeah,
Okay, they have great agility value. They have evasion, which kind of goes along with that. Resource generation, over succeeding, additional actions, and movement. Playstyles,
yeah,
big money, push your
yep.
luck, evasion expert, show off. That one's kind of new.
Yeah, I mean, that's watch this in a nutshell for sure, right? Yeah.
hmm
Honestly, this is a very accurate summary of the rogue class. I have no thoughts or notes on it on those strengths and those play styles. I think that this is the one that's the most lock for what they have, to what they have in the core sets and the starter decks.
What would you add here, since you brought it up before, as a class weakness?
Willpower. I would
hmm
say like just generally they're weak to treacheries. Generally weakness to the treacheries. I mean, maybe less so now that there's some foot. So like willpower specifically. Um, I think also rogues are they're good at the management part of enemy management, but they seem to be bad at permanently solving enemies.
Mm,
It takes them longer to deal with enemies. Like if you think about it, they have the hammerless, which if we want, we can get that on the screen. We can start poking at cards
sure.
here. Um, the hammerless is a good example of a card that it reads really good, and then you put it into play, and you're like, wait a minute, I have to evade the enemy before I deal the damage. And
hmm
like the new polished cane, or as I call it, the Polish cane, um, is also a really good way of doing enemy management, but it's very slow when it comes to killing enemies, right? So I think the two weaknesses that I'm seeing signposted in this new rogue is that obviously I think they're still the weakest to the mythos phase, right? Like we have twos for Andre and Trish,
Mhm.
but there are also their ways of permanently dealing with enemies is a lot lower than even the two classes we've seen so far.
That's wild. Yeah, let me talk about some of those things. So, the biggest thing that's missing when you talk about the treacheries. So, willpower, they both have twos. Although in the end of chapter one, like they started to get more threes, but they never went above three except for Safina, who's different.
Mhm.
Uh, that was always a weakness, but you could figure it out with the whole card pool, how to pass those tests consistently. Here, I think you just have to like grin and
Tank
bear
it.
it.
Yep.
The center stage will help you during, or like at the end of your turn. That can do something.
Yeah.
There is a level three well connected. Red clock, potentially, if you can somehow time that. Um, but their skills go here. We have easy street contingency, maybe. I don't think you're committing watch this to a willpower test in the mythos phase. That seems pretty risky. And I mean, Andre has his own kind of card here, but you can't really recur these things that easily.
No.
They're they're kind of here. I think Easy Street's probably the best outside
Yeah,
of
easy
running
street
Unexpected Courage.
and well connected. Like those
Yeah.
are like the two ways they have to do it consistently. But even then, skills aren't consistent and well connected. You need the money to get there. And
Yep.
while they have great money generation, like that part they nailed, I think that weakness is still kind of here. I mean, I have my thoughts on well connected in terms of how it breaks the color pie,
Hmm.
and should maybe have been limited a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they should have just not reprinted this or printed a nerfed version.
Yeah.
Um,
Make it not work during the mythos phase.
yeah, I think that's what I suggested when we were talking about it. Yeah, just like only during your turn. Um, because I think it breaks the pie a bit too easily for what the rogues um, should have as a weakness.
It's interesting because you go back to what they say, over succeeding at skill tests, but like which skill tests? It should be the ones that
Yeah,
they're trying to over succeed on, not use those abilities to pass tests that they should have no business passing. Like
yeah,
that's Survivor. Survivor does that, not
yeah.
rogues. I
The
mean,
other
sure, gamble aside, but like that's much more expensive to put in your deck.
another big thing is here is that the card draw is actually pretty bad for the rogues. Like they still have lucky cigarette case, and people are going to point to that and be like, "Look, it's still good card draw." But what if you don't draw it? Like then, like the thing about like a class with good card draw is that you draw it with your mulligan, or you draw it enhanced with the other card draw you have that's just like really good.
Hmm.
So like, what do they have? They have lucky cigarette case. They have manual dexterity, and Trish has her signature.
Trish has her
They they
signature. Hmm.
they changed the pickpocketing to now be only resources. So like they lost a big part of their draw potential that's there. Like pickpocketing would actually be huge in this core set for the rogues because they actually do want to evade things.
Hmm.
And like sticky fingers is potentially a little bit overkill because of that.
Draw one card. Grapevine.
Yeah,
Level two.
on the upgraded grapevine, is that the upgraded one? Yeah.
Let's
So like
go.
I feel like rogues took a big shot to that in their pool, which I think is good, because I think that their moves. I think the theory is that because now that their movement is better and they can get actions, like that's where their card draw lives in, right? Like this extra stuff that they're gaining from saving on movement or any other free actions they might gain.
Take a basic draw action, right? Why not?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
always there. Yeah, their events, economy wise, it's just paint the town red and sort of decisive strike in there.
yeah.
That's it.
However, with that said, look at their cost, right? Their events are also still very cheap, right?
Yeah, two.
Um, which is, yeah, like twos across the board pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
um, but like yeah, like that I think is a big note for this class as well is that they're going to generate a lot of resources. Like even look at their assets, right? Like their assets are dirt cheap too. Like maybe they're like a 3 cost for the hand slots, but
Hmm.
like everything else is like 2s. It's like they're pretty low curve for their kind of stuff here.
Yeah. And they have some other ways of getting resources. Clearly, the Another Day, Another Dollar, Fame, Marcus, they are here, and the skills are crazy. So let's just look at those. That these don't cost anything, and they get you. I mean, this is the best resource generation card they've ever printed, right?
Yeah, out the door is it's easily the best. Yeah. Yeah, like it's I I remember when I was looking through these cards and I saw watch this and I was like, "Yes, watch this is back." And then out the door said, "Hey, I'm the new hotness." And I was like, "Oh my god, it's like watch this but even better."
And you get both, which is pretty
Yeah.
sick.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the movement stuff. So they did mention movement as a class strength, and so far, let's just start from the top. So Trish has an Elder Sign that moves her. We love to start there, right?
Yeah.
uh, you get her ability on her covert ops also potentially moves you. Again, Trish only. But then there's this guy.
Yeah. Which honestly, if it was just him, I think that would be an apt sentence that rogues have good movement.
Yep. What else actually is there? There's the Grapevine, which I have not played yet, but gives
I have Grapevine 2 in a deck that I'm currently trying out,
an
but I
Andre.
haven't drawn it yet. And Andre, yeah. There's also the red clock, which
Oh
is
yeah,
very expensive, but it is really good movement.
yeah.
They have a lot in like it's kind of stacked onto other effects, right? Like clean sweep lets
Clean
you
sweep.
move, and then also the what
The
is it? The
skill.
out of sight, yeah, out of
Yeah,
sight lets you move as well.
this
And
can
I
move
mean,
you far.
I wasn't high on out of sight when it was first spoiled, but like free resources, free card draw, free movement, like that's all good to be doing it while you're doing other things, right? So like it is fitting into that free movement bubble that they talked about in their summary.
It's tricky for us who have played the game for so long, you even longer, of course, to get out of the chapter one bubble because
Yep,
you look at, oh, where is X? And we're used to playing decks that could make every card be like the best card that gets X. And it doesn't do anything else because it's so good at doing the one thing. And when you build decks that do that, they're really strong. But so far with a small card pool, you're looking for those effects stapled to other things, and the card looks kind of on its own, and it might be but when you play these all together and try to go for the play style that they're asking you to play, you're actually going to find that you have all of this stuff eventually. You just don't get it in the packages that we were used to before. That's
yep.
the hope. That's the
That's
hope.
the hope. Yeah, that's the hope.
I mean, that's the point of the color pie, right? That maybe they don't draw cards or maybe they don't move like other classes did or that we used to do, but they do it a different way. And the outcome eventually is still the same. It's just that the way of doing it is different.
Yep.
We'll see. Anything else? So you said that they're missing the selfish part. Is there actually anything in here that feels that way?
I don't think so. In all fairness, I think that's okay if that's not a core philosophy, though. If they like show it up in random cards, it's probably not necessary as a core philosophy, right?
It's also these guys, right? Andre is not,
Yeah.
he's not a selfish guy. He's not,
Yeah, and Trish, yeah,
and Trish
Trish
either.
in her new form, not either, right?
Right. We'd need a Finn, we'd need a Skids
Yeah.
to make that make sense. Go back to what they say here about um like show off is a little bit maybe Dexter, maybe. Watch this, of
I
course, as
also
you
see it in
mentioned.
Andre, kind of
Yeah,
like
Andre as
I'm the
well.
yeah,
Succeed by
yeah,
over succeed is that, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Um but living just outside the law is like isn't this wild that hammerless is not illicit?
Yeah, I'm very curious about like that kind of thing. I'm gonna like say like I feel like pistols are okay if they're not illicit, like, unless they're, like, an actual gun that would be illicit at the time, right? Like a modified Gatling gun,
Right.
right? Like, or like a Tommy gun type thing, right? Um, but, like, lockpicks are still illicit. Like, I'd be more alarmed if they printed, like, a lockpicks that wasn't illicit, right? Because to me, like, at least in the Arkham world, a gun doesn't always require for me to have it be illicit, right?
Well, it's not that. It's just that until now, Rogue's guns were illicit, right?
Yeah,
And to print something that isn't is showing that, well, Rogues can be more than just the gun runners
yeah,
of the Finn
100%.
Edwards type. And that's interesting to get here because we just didn't get an investigator who fits those archetypes in the
Yeah,
first two sets. Which, I mean, not really relevant for the video, but I'm actually super surprised that Andre is the evergreen investigator and not someone who is some kind of a rogue fighter. But probably
yeah.
they had other sorts of issues there with Tommy being that character. But yeah.
Honestly, they could have done like Andre Patel as Skids, and I would not have blinked an eye. And then they could have done that. Albeit the outside of the law does come into a lot of the rogue, like, so like the rogue identity seems to be the famous person, the
Mm,
show off, or the criminal. And like we look at, say, for example, if you go to the events, right? We see that here. If you just look at like Paint the Town Red and Sudden Fall and Clean Sweep, we see that identity come across here, right? Same with like Right Under Their Noses. And like Quick Exit is a little bit of both, right? Like just in like the flavor of these cards.
right under their
So like
noses
I think
actually
that,
is illicit. That's actually kind of
yeah.
fascinating. Hmm.
So like it's one of those things where like these are they're all kind of coming together. I feel like the identity of the rogue class is more than just criminal at this point now, which I think is really, really at least interesting from a flavor perspective.
Yeah, and no doubt it'll come back. It's just interesting that of the a lot of cards that we got it in a very different way than we'd seen before.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, enough about rogues. Let's go on to everyone's favorite class in two-player, Mystics. All right, let's look at the old Mystic description. Mystics are drawn to and influenced by the arcane forces of the mythos. Many have spell casting abilities able to manipulate the forces of the universe through magical talent. And now, while every investigator has a unique connection to the deadly workings of the mythos, the eccentric and often self destructive mystics willingly embrace the void. Drawn like moths to the flame, although not with that card, they risk both body and soul in order to harness the strength of the supernatural for their own ends. This incredible power often comes at a cost, however. If you share this desire to tap into forces too great for human comprehension, consider walking the path of the mystic. Yeah, what do you think of the flavor?
I think it's good. I think it's a deeper dive into what the original mystic definition was.
Agreed. And I like that the self-destructive part is highlighted more because I feel like we kind of lost that a bit towards the end of chapter one.
I agree.
Okay, their strengths are high willpower, powerful spell and ritual cards, predicting or ignoring chaos tokens, encounter deck control, doom manipulation. And their class
Yeah.
playstyles are Blood Witch, Spell Slinger, Fortune Teller, and Doombringer.
Yeah. I feel like again, this is very well represented both in terms of strengths and play styles for the core set. And I think the reason why like so far Rogue and Mister are able to hit that is because the Guardian and the Secret class are the tutorial classes.
Yeah.
And then these other ones are the ones that you kind of get to start doing the stranger things, right? So like when they say we were shocked about like the medic or like the gumshoe thing, is that those aren't really the core basic learn to play ideas of the classes. But like with these mystics, they're able to kind of tap into all of these different things.
Yeah. Uh, both Dexter and Izzy, for that matter, are really cool investigators in the core because, like, once you've figured out how to play the game, those
Yeah.
two investigators are quite complex, but are
Yeah.
very rewarding.
All right. I want to ask you a question this time. What do you
Sure.
think the weaknesses of the mystic are if they were here for the new course, the new chapter 2?
Oh,
Because I
that's a
would
trick
I'll tell
question,
you what it was in chapter 1. It was card draw and resource generation.
right?
But it's
He
not really that anymore. And it's also not real. I mean, okay, so um even though I guess like if I had to look at this, right? Oh, I think that realistically, my hope is that it becomes healing. And they have healing right now, but it is
expensive.
pretty good. It's expensive, right? Because I feel like it's no longer card draw. But it is okay. When I say it's no longer card draw, Marie Lambeau is kind of an anomaly, right? Like, not every investigator in the Mystic class is going to have her ability to draw cards while also drawing cards, right? Like,
Mhm.
she is the exception to that, right? So I think for to get the proper idea of if the Mystic card draw is as good as it feels right now is universal or not, I think remains to be seen, at least for me. Um, but right now it's looking very good, right?
Dexter can
Um,
find his stuff incredibly well. Jim, right? We'll look at the signature card as well in a second, but and Izzy as a half mystic, like she can find her things fairly easily. I would say that the weakness is maybe finding a particular thing other than Dexter's ability. Like if you're looking for a spell, you do have Arcane Initiate, but you might not be encouraged to run just all spells. And since we don't have the redundancy that we did, at least towards the end of chapter one, of running like, let's have 6 different investigate assets, uh,
yeah.
probably like the focus for Mystics is just way more I can do anything rather than I am purely going to focus on one particular part of the game. So I think they're much more, and that can be both a good thing and a bad thing, but they're going to be a little bit more unpredictable, I think, in terms of which thing they can do at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, so I think I want to actually we should look at the cards cuz I actually want to look at like what is the specific card draw that is unique to only the Mystic class. And then also I have another idea of what one of their weaknesses is, but I think we should stay on this card draw topic first.
Sure. We should also talk
Cuz
about the
like
spells themselves once we get there. But yeah.
yes. But like for card draw, there's Jim and the Arcane Initiate,
Hmm.
and this is just for these investigators, like just for the Mystic Invet pool as itself.
Right.
Just is there anything else?
Um, I mean, the ritual dagger doesn't draw, but it
It is
reuses
recursion.
things.
Yeah, it's yeah.
Yeah.
There's recursion. Um, so that's where I'm curious to see how much the card draw is expands beyond this, right? Because like um, Jim is very good, right? But Jim in and of himself is just a lucky cigarette case zero, right? In theory, which is still an amazing card, right? But I'm curious to see how much this fares when there's not like Marie giving extra cards, when Dexter gets so many like much card draw out of his asset returning effects, and
Mm.
when Izzy doesn't have the additional card draw from her discard pile, right? So like I feel like this is something that potentially could be something that they still aren't great in. However, their resource generation is now insane because they have the offering bowl, which does also draw cards if Jim's in play. And then there also is the parlay card Spiritual Charm, um,
And
which
the favor of Balshandor, which
in the favor of Balshador, yeah, the new the what is that?
uncages soul.
Uncaged the Soul, yeah. Um, I like that there are more costs associated with these kind of things. Like I think that the resource cards are all healthy cards,
Hmm.
right? I think that like there's nothing that's really that there. But I am curious in like 2 years if we feel the same about the card draw. So I'm very curious about that. So we should try to like keep that in the back of our mind and pay attention to as more cards come out.
So my take on this is you're absolutely right, but I think it's okay. Probably this is just they were trying to solve the problem, the weakness, because
Mhm.
it was too difficult to play Mystic when you couldn't find any of your spells or enough of them quickly enough. So they moved the card draw from the player card to the investigator card or to their off
Yeah.
class stuff. And actually, I'm going to say that is a huge improvement because now you have the ability to gate what that does because it's only on the investigator card. So you don't need to
Yes.
worry about we can fill the deck with 10 card draw cards and don't worry about finding your stuff because you have bought, 5 years of product. When it's just on the investigator card, and I'm glad you highlighted Dexter returning things to his hand. That is so much better than the Chapter 1 Dexter version because you needed to
Yep.
supplement his ability with card draw in order to play more things because
Yep.
you were discarding them. Anyway, yeah, I think that actually is the solution. Now, does that
Mhm.
make Mystics kind of cracked right now because the cards that they're using are actually better too?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it does. But no, it's true. But the thing that's also really nice is that um Marie Lambeau is like Mark Harrigan, where I mean, she is just Mark Harrigan.
Hmm.
But like, the fact is that the reason why Mark Harrigan is so good is because the card draw is open. You can do what you want with it. And when it's on the investigator card and it's pushing them in a direction of, hey, try this out, it means that you as the player can decide what to do with these cards as opposed to before with Arcane Initiate, which is still a very good way of getting cards, she was limited to just spells. So I would love to see more like one shot mystic effects to help them draw.
And I think we'll still get some of those things just as a replacement for. I mean, what's also nice about the Arcane Initiate is without charisma, you're not playing Jim.
Yep.
So it's a different way to draw cards and a lot cheaper, really. But there's some drawback here, but you don't double dip unless you're Marie, and then this is just this is insane. It just is.
Yeah. It's very good.
um,
Do you want to talk about the spells?
I
Because
do.
we can talk about those. Because then I have the other weakness that I think is pretty solid for the Mystic class here.
Yeah, I mean, one weakness from the Chapter One Mystics that they never really solved in an appropriate way, in my opinion, was that when you needed to deal one damage to an enemy, like I don't know, a swarm of rats, what could you do? You use an off class card, you use an overpower. That's just not satisfying. You don't want to use your spell because the charges are limited, and once they're gone, they're gone. And overkill on a little puny enemy is just it just feels bad. Instead, we have all of these spell assets that don't use charges unless you succeed. There's a limited number of charges here, and they can unexpectedly go away, but you aren't like contorting your play style to worry about that. You're not saying, "Oh, well, I have no way to fight something because my spells asset just doesn't really work well here." Now you have exactly that. When you compare it to the other spells, the Sixth Sense variant, I suppose, and the Evade one, the story is slightly different because getting one clue at a time is okay, but still, you can use this to clear out a location that you don't need to spend the charges on. You just have one clue that's
Yep.
left because you're playing three player and you don't want to use your Right of Seeking. And Shadow Mount just comes in with a ton of charges and gives you some movement, which is nice.
Yep. I think this is a really nice change. And I think the Mystics are still weak to this. Like if they lose their Cosmic Flame at the wrong time, they can be in a little bit of a pickle.
And they
Um,
definitely can.
I also like the transition from horror to damage. I think that's cool.
Hmm.
I think it's a little bit more flavorful, but they still have some horror cards that go in this in terms of the new Soul Link and also, of course, Ward of Protection,
Yep.
which does still work with the Cloak of Resonance.
Yep.
But it's still, I think the Blood Witch is a more accurate thing. But I think the big thing that the Mystics have, and it's very similar to the Guardian weakness, is that they are very limited to the three actions on their turn. They don't have as much ways to cheat out actions compared to some of the other classes that we have here. Even in the like, I guess like their biggest thing is offering bowl, right? Because that's like the lightning bolt effect to gain resources, but it's costing them damage, right? And if we look at what healing they have right now, like infuse life, I know I said I wasn't going to talk about the quality of the cards, but this is so expensive, right? Like that's a big demand of a card to get that much, like to be a slot in your deck. They do have some cool stuff like Consume Life and Blood Ward, which require enemies to be there. But I
Mhm.
do think that it's going to ask you as a player to be aware of these things for the Mystic class if you want to go all in on them.
But what they have is soak.
Yep.
They have the bloodstone, they have
Yep.
the cloak, they have the arcane initiate gym. Marie gets an extra 3
Yep.
to play around with. It, you're right. You're not wrong about that. It just does feel, and the lucky charm too also helps move things around. But I think they gave them the tools to figure that out, and especially with Dexter, who can put these things in and out of play pretty quickly.
Yep.
He's very good.
Yep.
I did also want to. I agree with you on the action part. Like Mystics in Chapter One, that was kind of the deal that their spells all do a lot, but also cost you a lot to get them into play. So they're kind of slow to get going, but then they get there and they could change the game. Like you can have, because you're focusing on one stat for the most part, you can in the end of the game start clearing out locations when you weren't even planning on doing that, contributing that way at the beginning. That's really powerful when things might have gone south. I think their problem is probably the slow start still. While the card draw is
Mhm.
good, they don't really have, they can't do anything until they play these things. Dexter makes up for it with the extra play action, but you need to find your stuff, you need to play it, you need to get into position, and then you can start going ham, which it does happen. It's not like hard to do, but I think they're a little bit slower in general because they're not doing basic fights or investigates,
Yep. 100%.
and they don't have the density of weapons like Cosmic Flame. It's just that's it. You have this thing, and
Yeah, I do think Mystics are going to be still tough on the mulligan because, like, even if we
it
look at
is.
Jim as the card draw, you're not drawing cards unless you start taking damage, right? Which you need another other pieces to do reliably. So I think that they might have still have that same Mystic weakness of requiring the time and effort and luck to get set up early,
Mhm.
at least at level 0.
And Rogues wasn't listed, but I think they also historically have had big splashy effects, right? The exceptional
Mhm.
cards themselves. And Mystic is in the same spot. Like once you find your Cosmic Flame 5,
Yeah, you're going to
eh,
be sitting pretty for a while.
it's incredible. And I think that's even true for the other ones. Second Sight's not quite as powerful, but that's okay. I think the clue getting shouldn't be quite as nuts, but
Yep.
even so, it's a lot of charges and clues. Okay. Um, Anything else to talk about here? Yeah, the Doom stuff, there's a bit here, but there's no investigator that takes advantage of that in quite the way that we'd seen before. Like maybe Dexter a bit, but it is something that they want to revisit, I'm totally sure. And
Mhm.
I love that they have a lot of this self damage and horror because it makes sense with the cards. Like I do feel
Yep.
like the Mystic class has been incredibly well designed. It might be too powerful, but I think all the cards make so much sense with each other that I felt great playing Dexter and Marie. And I know you said the same
Yep.
thing that you sometimes have not been interested in playing Mystics, but now it's a bit different.
Yes, it is. And I'm I right now I feel like it's a bit too good, but I think I'm gonna truly wait until we get some more mystics because I think it's the fact that like Marie, Dexter, and Izzy are all very powerful investigators.
Mhm.
Like I think there's a case for all of them being like A pluses.
These are just they're just excellent designs. I think this Blood Curse take a direct damage is a worthy drawback. Soul Link as
Yep,
well. Like these things can, like for Izzy, you don't want to do this too much unless you can
yep,
heal it off pretty quickly because you're already taking the horror. And yeah, like most of these effects dealing you damage or horror means a lot. And I think that's just a great spot for the cards to live.
yep,
Okay,
100%.
let's finish up with the survivors. Let me go back to the original. They are everyday people in the wrong place at the wrong time. Hey, that's a card name. No, is that wrong? Right place, wrong time?
Right place, wrong time. Yeah.
Well, they got that wrong then. Anyway, simply trying to survive. Ill prepared and ill equipped, survivors are the underdogs who rise to the occasion. That's a card. When their lives are threatened. Okay, the new one. While many other investigators are accomplished fighters or scholars, survivors tend to be regular folks who just happen to show up in the wrong, oh man, they did it again, the wrong place at the wrong time. Thrust into situations beyond their ken, survivors get by with a combination of grit, common sense, and luck. Like any last one standing in a horror movie, these investigators must step up to become the unexpected hero of their own story. If the idea of playing the role of a desperate, unlikely hero appeals to you, play a survivor. I like this, but I actually find it to be kind of tough to see that translate into the gameplay because they're not really
Yeah.
the last one standing. In fact, they seem to be doing like really well. But I get the idea that they're doing something with not as much. They shouldn't be expected to do what the other classes can do, and then somehow they do anyway. But
Yeah,
anyway, yeah,
I feel like that comes across more with like the cards
yeah.
than like the actual gameplay mechanics for sure.
All right, their class strengths are reactive play, absolutely. Low cost cards, recurring discarded cards, discarding cards for abilities, failing forward, and traps. Playstyles are
Traps is very interesting to have as the strength because that actually doesn't mean anything.
no, it like trappers in their class playstyles, but like the strength is that they play this particular card. Like,
Yeah.
great, that doesn't mean much. But yeah, Jack of all trades, lose to win, trapper, and then final girl. That's the part where I'm like, what does that mean?
So the final girl is like that idea of what does it mean? What does that mean in these cards?
I don't know, because like that should be the you get better when everyone else has died or something, right?
I think so to me. So can you read those all again?
Yeah, Jack of all trades,
Yeah.
lose to win,
Yeah.
trapper,
Yeah.
and final girl.
So the final girl to me is the archetype of you can take a beating and still come out on top. Because to
Okay.
me, that's what the final girl is in the movies. They get their fucking shit kicked in the whole movie, and then kill Jason Voorhees in the last second by like tripping him into an inferno, like a furnace, right?
Yep. Okay. Fair enough.
So I think that to me is what that would be. It's like I can get destroyed but still come out on top.
Yeah, and to some extent, we haven't seen that as much. Like Izzy has some of that. I think she's kind of the final girl, but anything that gives you a boost for having a bunch of damage and horror on you would fall into that category, or something like End of the Road from Chapter One, where you get to the end and now you get some benefits.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay.
Um, I
Yeah.
think so. Like I think for like going back to the nitpick about the traps as the strength, I wish that like they phrased it as um like can
It,
trick enemies, right? Like
mhm.
outsmart enemies. Outsmart enemies is what I would have put there because I feel like that really comes across with these survivor cards in this new pool where I truly do feel like I'm outsmarting the enemies that are here. But again, that's just being a little bit pedantic, right? Because I do get what they're trying to say, but I wish it was just phrased a little bit differently.
And they could even just say events there.
Yeah. But I mean, I think like events is too broad of a thing to have there, right? Like,
Probably
because
some kind of
I mean,
event,
yeah, they
not
could have put
traps,
events, but
but
I think you and I might still have given them some beef there. What do you think are the weaknesses of the survivor class?
as
And
they
you
are right
can't say
now.
nothing. Yeah.
I know, I want to. Um, well, I think their weakness often has been that they don't get very high skill value. So if they're trying
Yes.
to
Yeah.
fight or do some kind of a investigation, they get to like a 5 or 6. They're not sitting there stacking up all the numbers and getting to 8s before they take tests. So that's often okay. That's like the play style where you're failing the test, but sometimes when the going gets tough and you have an enemy there that has retaliate, you don't actually want to fail. You want to pass
Yeah.
those tests. And uh, maybe this is, jack of all trades, master of none issue is that they can't quite push to the heights that the other ones can. Action
I
compression
think that yeah.
historically has been the other one, right?
Yeah. I think that a big thing about the survivors is that they can get by with little, but if they have nothing, they can't do anything. And like the
Yeah.
other classes, generally, like rogues can fall back on their foot. Mystics are kind of the same, right? Like Seekers can fall in their book. Survivors can just do a basic fight action, right?
Mhm.
But if a survivor's in a situation where they have nothing, they have to dig out. They're not good at drawing cards. I'm going through the draw here. They have Rabbit's Foot, which does draw if you fail.
Which is
Uh,
actually probably more relevant than we could give credit for in a small card pool.
yeah, 100%. They have Hidden Shelter,
Yeah.
which unless it's free or there's a lot of players, it's going to be hard to get the full advantage of. They have Respite at 2 experience, which does replace itself, so it's not really card draw, like, you're not getting card advantage.
Yeah.
And Stalk Prey is, uh it costs an enemy, right? So, like, it's not again, it's also just replacing itself.
You're not playing the
Um,
card for the card draw. It's just it's tacked on to make the card better value.
so where they do have their card, quote, unquote, "draw" is recursion.
Mhm.
So, like with the hunter's instinct, that allows them, or the do or die, like they get to draw cards from their discard pile. And those things are generally more limited now than they were in chapter one. And I think that this is a pretty healthy place. And I think if survivors lost good card draw, like I don't think they should see a take card effect in
Mm.
chapter two. Um, but if they are able to gain movement instead, because they have a very powerful movement card. Like at level 0, Loner is kind of insane. So this is a signpost in here that survivors are now gaining on their movement abilities, but they're going to need to, at least to me, find their draw in other places. And I'm also just looking at their resources. They have no resource production except for Pocket Knife. Same old thing, which does do for only events, which that's not that's not economy.
It's
That
not
is a
Schaffner's.
dex plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then they also have it on Hidden Shelter, but the first one has to go back to paying the cost for Hidden Shelter. So I think that as a whole, resource production and card draw, they seem to be signposting that those are generally going to be the weaknesses of the survivor class.
Something I just noticed. Miguel's knapsack does draw cards. And if you look back at all of the signature cards, you have Dexter Drake, that's draw a card. I mean, it
Yep.
does more than that too, but it draws a card. Trisha's Covert Ops draws a card. Joe's Detective Intuition draws two, I think, if you find
Hmm.
it. This thing draws a card. Who are we missing? Andre doesn't have that. Tommy doesn't have that. Daniela doesn't have that. Izzy's doesn't draw cards either. But a lot of these, it's on the signature, which is kind of a good spot for it
Yep.
to be.
Yeah, it goes back to what you're saying about how like the investigators can bend the pie a little bit, and that's a healthier place to put a bend as opposed to putting it on a card that any survivor can run.
Because now
Because
you're
then in the
just going to
future,
run it, right? Like Take
yeah,
Heart
yeah,
is in every deck. If
and then
you're,
it amplifies the problem if an investigator later on bends the rules of their color pie, and there's a card in their pool that bends the rule of the color pie. They now have a double bend, and that becomes a break, right?
yep, yep,
And that's kind of the Tony Morgan problem. Tony
yeah,
Morgan is a bunch of bends until it breaks, right? Like, and I think that that's an example of what can happen when someone goes so far outside of their class that they become a different class, but get all of the benefits of the class that wasn't designed for that.
100%. I'm totally with you there. Anyway, we were talking about resource generation, and you're right. This seems to be a bit more of a struggle. Um, but you could just run cheaper, I suppose. Like even the fact that, and maybe this is just Miguel, like he can make up for that with the neutral cards, like recurring eCash is actually a really, really good, right?
Yes.
Playing
Yep.
that twice does solve a lot more problems because we don't have a whole lot of burst economy, honestly, in all of the chapter two cards. I can't think of, is there anything that just gains more than three resources? I don't think
Just
so.
out the door.
Out the door. Okay. And that's fine because like that should be the in class strength
Yes.
that they
Yeah.
have.
And yeah,
Um,
that's actually a good example of it. Yeah, 100%. Like that is the thing that like 3 should be the baseline, right? 3 is the amount of resources that you get no questions asked, right? So then you have to look at each class of how do you get above that. And right now you can really only do it in Guardian and Rogue, right?
Bounty,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah,
Rogue, yeah.
which is probably good.
Yeah. Anyway, what else we talk about with Survivor? There's a lot of
Well, I suppose
these,
survivors also no, they only get 5 with same old thing. That one is also only because you only actually get 3 resources. It says 5, but it does cost 2 to put down.
right? It's laundering it, sort of, kind
Yeah.
of. Um, yeah. So when we talk about the weaknesses, a lot of these things just give you a little bit or not much. Like Old Compass doesn't give you a boost; it gives you a -1 Shroud, but it's not that much. We're looking at Izzy, and uh, Izzy only has 2 to begin with. Miguel also has 2. Like this is not gonna crush through a 4 Shroud location. What it's gonna do is enable you to use your other cards, like look what I found.
Yep.
Um, I probably glassing and lion weight and whatnot bend this a bit because you're actually using a different skill, and
Hmm.
that is extremely relevant for Miguel because he has the 4. He has +1 for agility with Daniel,
Yep.
and we should just point out Daniel himself makes this whole idea work too because you're gonna try to do the test. You might fail. You try again and pass that time because you get an extra bonus, but you still are failing once. You get all the bad stuff that happens when you fail a test. So it's not just ignoring failure, it's
Yep.
using failure potentially to proc other stuff, but it's giving you another shot. Like this is where your action compression comes from in a very, I wouldn't say unorthodox way, but it's the survivor way. This is how they should be dealing with these problems.
Yep. 100%.
They have a lot of healing too, maybe
They
too
do have a
much.
lot of healing, and to me, this is where like the final girl thing comes in, because I just imagine like the final girl just got saw one of her friends get cut up, and she's running in the woods, and then she trips and she falls, and it's like finds a canteen on the ground, and she's like, "Oh frick, I'm thirsty," or she finds like some extra rations in this weird looking bathtub on the middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
right? Like it's like that kind of like survivor thing that I think really comes across there.
And there's a lot of this. Alexi kind of to lead the charge. He's very good. He's very good.
Yep,
But like back to the can't pass skill test as well the normal way. Have you played Izzy with the guns?
I have, yeah.
It's tough. You have to
Yep,
use the skill cards. You can't just say,
yep,
"Oh, I have 4." Like, that's not enough. And that's cool. Like you're using a lot of your other resources to pass tests, but from like the chapter 1 perspective where you have like I don't know, Jessica Hyde, you have Scrapper, you have other ways of just boosting everything and you say, "Well, I'm just using this." And now I look like a guardian but with red. That's just not the case in chapter 2 so far. You really have to, well, I'll just say the name of the card. You really just have to scrape by.
yes, yeah, yeah. I think that, like, for, the healthy future of the survivor class, they should never have 5 in an active skill. They should only have it in brain or foot, like willpower or agility. I think that that's just the cleanest way. Like, they can use their foot offensively, but it requires other cards. This goes back to the thing I talked about, how if a survivor has nothing, they should feel a little bit desperate, right? And 5 book is not desperate.
So going back to class strengths, this is the only one of the 5 clearly that doesn't have really good whatever skill value,
Yeah.
which makes sense. But as you're saying, but don't give them really good any skill value, or if so, it's going to be one of the more defensive ones. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I wouldn't be upset about like a 5 foot survivor or even a 5 brain survivor, which we've never seen.
Nope.
Um, but I think it would make sense for the survivor class to do
We've
that,
we've never seen an all threes survivor. I don't know why not.
which is honestly kind of absurd because that, I mean, you know what it probably is? It's because they're the class that would probably be a little bit too jack of all tradesy. They probably wouldn't even blink.
Look, people don't like that stat line to begin with. Let's give them something to talk about, right?
But yeah, but the thing about survivors is that like I look at Miguel's stat line, and that's all threes to me. Like I look at Izzy's stat line, that's all threes to me. Like that's the crazy thing about the survivor class, right? Is that they're like that. That's a survivor.
It
Their
took me
stats don't matter if they're like unless there's a broken one like Daryl or even Hank.
it took me so long to realize that Miguel has the same stat line as Stella,
Yeah.
and same with his 8-8 sanity and health, because I didn't even know what Stella's stat line was. It's so irrelevant.
Yeah. 100%. And that's kind of the survivor unless they are uh like that's most survivors. I mean, I was going to say it's even Silas, but you and I both know that's also kind of now the case with Silas. He's all threes for his stats and he would do just fine. Like I think that pretty much any survivor except for again Daryl and Hank could probably survive on an all three stat line.
They should. And if not, you're not
Yeah.
playing the survivor cards, honestly.
Yeah.
Let's finish up by just talking about the reactive stuff. So we mentioned a couple of the cards like Daniel and Scrape By's there. We could talk about it again, but the movement of Lucky, the Lucky effect to a skill, and the Lucky 3 effect to a skill that doesn't draw cards, um, and doesn't work on other people. What's your take on that? How have you played with these cards? How does this feel different from the Luckies?
I think it was a mistake for the lucky 3 to be used on other people. Survivors are not a selfish class, but they are trying to get out alive, and I think that they should be focusing on just themselves for that kind of survival type mechanics, right? Um, I think that the lucky 3 becoming timely intervention 3 and lucky 0 becoming timely intervention 0 are good shifts as a whole. Um, because they also have skill synergy, which I think is really neat. I like the idea of Survivor is the skill class still, and they're getting cards that are supporting that and keeping that going. The other thing I like that the do or die changing to just asset or event. I know when this card was spoiled, Travis was like, "Oh, they made the same mistake again." But I actually think in the long run, do or die and legacy is not going to get touched. I think that, like maybe if you're playing for the lucky, but like I think that this card is not as egregious of an error on that kind of thing. But I also like that they realize that skills are strong and are likely going to stay strong. And I think it means that generally the hope is that assets and events are lower curve than their skills are going to be. That their skills are going to be continue to be impressive compared to some of their assets and events. Now, maybe they've already mucked that up with scrape by and glassing, but that that's so the thing is, scrape by doesn't help you win the game. It's a not lose card, but it's a very good not lose card. But the problem is when you get good enough, you can start using it offensively, right?
Right, right.
Um, and like glassing is just pure offense. Like that's just a pure offensive card. Um, and I think that's the kind of stuff that they really need to taper. Like their anything that's super offensive should remove itself from the game. I think.
Yeah, this it's tricky because if played fair, I think Scrape By is what the class needs. Probably we don't need to recur it with level 200's instinct, but that's a different issue too. Um, but yeah, like the fact that I beat Elcos by taking a basic punch because I had this in my hand is
Yeah.
a little silly.
Like I wouldn't mind to see them add like a forced effect on these cards that is an additional cost to return to your hand, discard a card, right? Like
Mm,
they like had some sort of value lost to do it. Um, but I'm waiting to see. But I think as a whole, the color pie for the survivor seems about on par. I'm very hesitant about the movement though. But that might be more of a legacy issue than a current issue. We'll have to see.
agreed. And I do, just to finish off, like that do or die doesn't return timely intervention. That's kind of the loop I think they were
Yes.
trying to avoid. And good. Like if you want these things back, and it's even hard to do that with respite because you have to keep them at level 0.
Yeah,
You
that's what I also do enjoy about like the hunter's instinct is also locked to the events, like the level of the event that you can return.
right.
I think that that's very healthy for recursion. I like that it's limited uses. I don't like that the level 0 discards itself, but I'd rather that discard itself than the level 2 version also discarding itself. Um, which, contrary to what people say, I don't believe is a misprint. I believe that was an actual design decision to have this one stay around.
We'll find out because we're probably due for a errata list or whatever. I'm not sure. I think I remember reading at some point that they said this was errata to discard, but we'll
That would be a mistake. That would
we'll
be
see.
bad.
They still have a chance to not do that.
Don't do that. Don't do it. It's bad. That's a bad choice.
uh, yeah, I actually like all these survivor cards for the most part because the play style gets a little goofy, and I do like that they have level-headed as their way of dealing with the Mythos phase. Even if they're limited in resources, it's a nice little fallback instead of giving them the Peter Sylvester in play just
Yep.
always.
Yep.
All right. I think we've talked long enough, although we like to yap. We're running out
Mhm.
of time and steam, perhaps. So let's just finish off by saying there are some clearly new directions. This is, for the most part, intentional, what they've given us. Maybe we'll
Yep.
be wrong and they release a bunch of cards next year that just go back on all this. But I think there's some very cool uh, design philosophies that are being used here and not ignored. It's hard to do that, I think, the more you make new cards, but for now,
Yeah.
looks pretty good.
Yeah, and no classes have seen like a major rehaul. Their identity is still pretty close to their chapter one counterparts, but I think apart from Guardians, they've all seen like a minor change in some way. Guardians have stayed pretty close to what they were before.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm excited to see how they continue to evolve from this, and hopefully they follow the baseline that they created here.
Yeah. And to be clear, you also said this earlier, I'll reiterate it here that this is not a discussion of like the power level of the cards or design
Mhm.
successes or failures. Like there's other stuff going on here, but with the ton of top down look at what the classes should do and what they've signaled to us, what they're actually doing with them, that's really where we're living in this video. But now the
Mhm.
video is going to
100.
end. So
Yeah.
thank you for joining me, Justin. If you haven't gone to Justin's channel and subscribing, I don't know what's going on here, but there's also going to be a new PBG channel out, more PBG, that's going to have
Yeah.
gameplay on it. So go subscribe to that one if you haven't done that already too.
That's a great shout out. Thank you.
All right. Bye everyone.